Chapter 4. The Initialed Ring. "Oh, Hannah, that's wonderful!" Nancy exclaimed. "But don't tell me you can read Swedish." "I wish I could. The person to translate the diary is our old Swedish bakery friend, Mr. Peterson. He has moved his shop to the other side of town." "Oh, I remember Mr. Peterson," said Nancy with a chuckle. "When I was a little girl, and you and I went there, I used to wheedle tarts and cookies from him." "And always get them," Mrs. Gruen replied, a twinkle in her eye. "You were his favorite customer. I'm sure that he'll be glad to translate the diary for you." Nancy was delighted at the prospect of seeing kindly Oscar Peterson again. "Hannah, that's a wonderful idea. I'll go to the bakery first chance I have. Right now, I must have my car fixed." Nancy took the convertible to a garage downtown. The mechanic promised to have it ready sometime the following afternoon. Then Nancy walked slowly homeward. Suddenly, Nancy heard her name called. Turning, she saw Bess and George hurrying to meet her. "You must be daydreaming about Ned," cried George as the cousins swung into step beside her. "We shouted 3 times." "Sorry," Nancy laughed. "Fess up now. Weren't you thinking about him?" Bess prodded. An animated expression came over Nancy's face. Her eyes danced mischievously as she told her bit of news. "Ned phoned this morning before I was up." "I told you," Bess exclaimed. "You did make a hit. Wish I had your technique." "Silly. Ned phoned me on a matter of business. This morning he found a ring near the hedge at the Raybolt grounds, and he thought it might belong to me. It had a D on it." "That was just an excuse," Bess declared. "Of course you didn't lose one." "My guess is that the ring was lost by the man I saw running away from the fire. I can hardly wait to see it." "And Ned, too," George added wickedly. Nancy laughed at her friend's persistence and was a bit surprised to find that she was blushing. A little farther on, the cousins said goodbye and went to their separate homes. Luncheon was ready when Nancy reached hers. She ate with Hannah Gruen, who was very much interested in the ring Ned had found. "Do you think it may be a clue?" she asked Nancy. "Yes, to the writer of the diary. I'm going to study the little book thoroughly this afternoon and see if I can find a name beginning with D." "But aren't you going to Mr. Peterson's?" Hannah asked. "Later. I promised to be here for a phone call from the Crippled Children's Home. I'm to help with their kiddie show next month. In the meantime, I think I'll call Mrs. Swenson to see how she and Honey are, and if she has heard from her husband yet." "Sorry," said the operator when Nancy had dialed. "That number has been temporarily disconnected." Nancy surmised Mrs. Swenson had been forced to give up her telephone because of lack of funds. "As soon as my car is repaired, I must drive to their house and see Honey and her mother," Nancy decided. "I only hope Mrs. Swenson will let me help." Nancy spent the next few hours poring over the diary, but nowhere did she come across a name beginning with D. She made one important discovery, however. At the bottom of a page, written in Swedish, Nancy found a tiny ink drawing. She deduced that it was a diagram for some part of an electronic machine. "I'll make no progress until I have Mr. Peterson translate this book for me," she thought. Nancy was on the verge of going to the bakery by bus, but a glance at the clock told her the place would be closed. Besides, it was almost supper time. When Carson Drew arrived home, Nancy mentioned that her new friend, Ned Nickerson, was calling that evening. "Oh, I see," her father drawled teasingly. "You want me to find it convenient to be away, is that it?" "Of course not. I particularly want you to meet Ned. He's bringing a ring that may interest you." "Not a diamond, I hope." "Dad!" Nancy cried in exasperation. "You're as bad as Bess and George. Mr. Nickerson is coming here on business."
"In that case," the lawyer said, his eyes twinkling, "I promise to be very proper and not embarrass you by asking the young man his intentions."
"You're absolutely hopeless," Nancy laughed, gave her father a hug, and ran into the kitchen. Even though Ned's visit was one of business, Nancy coaxed Hannah to bake a cake to be served with ice cream later in the evening. Mrs. Gruen smiled knowingly and immediately set to work. After supper, Nancy washed the dishes, then hurried upstairs. There was barely time for her to change into a flowered dress and high-heeled shoes before the doorbell rang. She hurried down to admit Ned. The first greeting over, they were both a trifle embarrassed and felt a little shy. Nancy was glad that her father appeared just then, for the introduction relieved the situation. She could tell that Mr. Drew liked Ned by the hearty way in which he shook hands. Many persons were awed in the presence of the attorney, but Nancy was delighted to discover that Ned felt at ease with him. Seated in the comfortable living room, the lawyer skillfully directed the conversation. He had been rather curious concerning Nancy's new acquaintance. Mr. Drew sensed that his daughter was more interested in him than in other young men whom she had dated. "Tell us about the ring, Ned," Nancy urged. "May we see it?" Ned took the object from his suit-coat pocket and handed it to her. Nancy observed that the signet ring probably belonged to a man, and was meant to be worn on the small finger. The polished black initial was set in a relief on gray background. Nancy studied the ring. "It looks like an antique," she remarked, handing the ring to her father. "And the inscription inside is in Swedish, Dad. It's an expression my Swedish school friend always used. Bär denna med tur. Wear this in luck." The discussion was interrupted at that moment by the ringing of the hall telephone. Carson Drew rose to answer it, and after a short conversation, came back and said regretfully to their guest, "I must go down to the office. New development in the case, so I must excuse myself. Sorry. Glad to have met you, Ned." After Mr. Drew had departed, Ned told Nancy the details of his call that morning at the Raybould grounds. He had gone there before breakfast in order to view the wreckage before the arrival of the curious townsfolk. The house had been razed by the fire. Nothing had been salvaged. "Did the investigators find a clue to the cause of the fire?" Nancy asked. "So far, it's only a theory," Ned replied, "but I learned that the police and fire officials surmise explosives in the cellar may have been set off by a remote control." "But how, and by whom?" Nancy queried in amazement. "They have no idea. Even a passing car with a radio sending set could have done it accidentally." "The house is pretty far from the road," Nancy countered. To herself, she added, "Could that fleeing man who dropped the diary have used remote control, and not ever have been inside the house?" Her thought was interrupted by Ned. "It's a queer case," he said. "Old Foxy Felix will get quite a jolt when he hears about the fire." "Doesn't he know about it yet?" Nancy asked in surprise. "Not according to latest reports. The Rayboulds are still away. Their neighbors tried to get in touch with them at the Seashore Hotel, where they usually stay, but they're not registered." "I wonder how much they will lose." "Even with insurance, I'd say a goodly amount, including furniture and irreplaceable art objects." "That will be a blow to the Rayboulds, Ned." "Yes, but everyone around Mapleton seems to think the old man had it coming. You hear all sorts of stories about the way he has connived to make money at other people's expense." Nancy nodded, recalling what her father had told her. "I'm curious as to how Mr. Raybould especially will take the loss." "In the worst spirit, I imagine," Ned grinned. "If I find out, I'll let you know." "I wish you would." Nancy was tempted to tell Ned about the diary, but decided not to until she knew more about it herself. After a very enjoyable evening, which ended with ice cream and Hannah's cake, Ned reluctantly stood up to depart. "I don't know what to do with his ring," he said thoughtfully. "Why don't you keep it, Nancy?" "I will if you want me to," she said eagerly. "Perhaps I'll find a clue to the owner through the inscription." "That's what I figured. Let me know if you do." Ned grinned. "On second thought, perhaps I'd better drop over now and then to inquire." Nancy's smile gave consent. Ned was still lingering on the porch steps when Carson Drew came up the walk. Nancy repeated what she had been told about the Rayboulds being unaware of their loss. The lawyer raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Odd it's so hard to locate Rayboulds. Perhaps for the sake of my own client, I'll look into the matter." "Why don't you, Dad? Mr. Raybould may be able to furnish a clue to what caused the fire." "You're right, Nancy," the lawyer said. "Raybould may have had enemies who deliberately set fire to the house. If so,
This may affect my case."
The lawyer did not reveal why. A few minutes later, Ned said goodnight, jumped into his car, and drove away. "How do you like him?" Nancy asked Mr. Drew hopefully as they walked into the house together.
"Nice boy," the lawyer commented. "I suppose I'll be seeing a lot of him from now on."
"Could be." Nancy laughed, kissed her father, and ran off to her room. She did not retire immediately. Instead, she examined the signet ring more carefully. Finally, she placed it in the bureau drawer with the diary. "I have 2 clues now instead of 1, Nancy assured herself jubilantly. "But the question is, are they connected?" As she undressed, Nancy determined to call on the Swedish baker early the next morning. "I must find out what the diary says."